Hello, everybody. I'm Melissa McKay. I'm a developer advocate with JFrog, and I'm here at the DevOps Speakeasy at JFocus 2023 with Venkat, the famous Venkat. Um, Tell us what you're doing here in JFocus.
I am having fun. It's
Awesome.
it's it's amazing to be here in JFocus. Can you imagine with 2,000 developers eager to mingle, learn, share the ideas? It's fantastic. It's cold outside,
Yes.
warm in every way inside.
Yes.
It's amazing.
This is so true.
Yeah.
I've been doing these interviews all day, and it's been really, really cool to hear the chatter and hear the conversations that people are having with each other.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important parts about a conference, I think, is being able to meet fellow developers and get different perspectives on things and have these conversations, and to meet speakers like you so that we can all be better educated and be able to make our lives a little bit easier when we head back to the office.
Speaking of which, you were asking what we're doing. That's been the best part for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Is I did a session yesterday, and a gentleman said, I already have several things I'm going to go back and change in my code.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's exactly what we are here for.
Yeah.
It just triggers those thought process when you
Yeah.
listen to it, talk or see somebody discuss about it. Like,
Yeah.
I could be doing that.
Yes.
And that's the whole point of being here. So that I'm really happy to be here for that.
Same.
Yeah.
So way back when I first was, starting to go to conferences as a younger developer, it can be pretty overwhelming because you learn a lot of new material. So what would you advise someone new coming in and being flooded with all of this information? What should they do with that information when they
Uh,
get home?
Well, first of all, prioritize. We can't solve everything at once. I think that's one of the key things to keep in mind. Is kind of filter out what is important to your application, your team, your project. And also, one of the other things I would say is diversify what you are learning. This
Okay.
morning there was a keynote on being compassionate about,
Yeah.
coding and being a human while coding. I think those things are extremely important for us to take away because, we're eager to learn about a particular technology,
Uh-huh.
but you could be learning about other technologies. You could be
Yeah.
learning about other ways of thinking, other ways of interacting.
Yes.
Putting ourselves in the shoes of another person who, may be more qualified than us or not as qualified yet as we are, how does that really fit in? I think we can learn so many things. And that's kind of what really I'm here for often. Go to user groups, go to conferences, is so I can go back as a better human than I
Yes.
came in.
Yes.
Right? So to get a different perspective and say, maybe that's something I need to really look into or think about. And that's what I would say. Filter it out, distill it to what's relevant,
Yep.
prioritize and apply it.
Yes, I totally agree with you, and I liked your point that you made about diversifying what you learn. It's kind of like a muscle, right? If you focus on one muscle, you're only going to grow one part of your whole being, and that's not always a good thing. So yeah, speaking of diversifying what you're learning, tell me about your talk. It's somewhat controversial.
Well, so, so one of the things I realized early on, and you were talking about being a young developer, and me being in software development itself was quite accidental in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
because my initial research was mostly in computer architecture,
Okay.
and that's what I was focusing on, and I got, so to say, dragged into software development for various reasons, and when I did, I really fell in love with programming languages. And to me, the reason is, if I ask somebody to write a poem and about whatever, right, about a love, about, sorrow, about nature, well, there's infinite ways in which you can write a poem on an idea.
Right.
And to me, that's exactly what programming is. So there's a reason why we call them programming languages, because languages are used to communicate. And so now we have different languages, and of course languages evolve over time. But my question is, how does it feel to program in one language versus another? Not from the computer science point of view of lexical parsing and tokenizing, but
Right.
from the way of expressing the ideas in those languages.
Okay.
All the way from writing code fluently to maybe even creating DSLs. So I really started expanding into programming languages, and I often say that I program in 15 different languages. What that means is I'm not good in any one of them. But along the way, one of the languages I really feared way back in time was JavaScript. And part of the reason I feared the language is it's not only dynamically typed, it's also a weakly typed language. You know,
Yes.
it does whatever you tell it to do with no constraints on
Right.
asking you, did you really mean it? And
Right.
so as a result, but then over the years, I've seen the language, grow and change, and I truly got excited about it. So a few years ago, I started talking about it. I was using JavaScript extensively in my applications,
Okay.
obviously to create the front end. Then I wrote a book on rediscovering JavaScript, which really gave me the opportunity to dig deeper into the language and present it in the light of how can we benefit from this language rather than being fearful as I once did. And,
Yeah.
and so, so the talk I gave today is really about JavaScript, the fascinating parts, to show the things that are in JavaScript today
Hmm.
that A, didn't exist a few years ago, but B, not only makes JavaScript a better language, but if you look at Java, for example, if you look at Kotlin, if you look at C Sharp, not that they are taking these away from JavaScript. I don't want to give that idea, but what's in JavaScript, like destructuring, is now emerging in Java.
Yes. I've noticed this too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this was about 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. There was a day I got really excited, and I tweeted saying, "Today's tweet is sponsored by Destructuring." And Brian Getz,
Uh-huh.
the architect behind the Java language, replied back saying, "I'll neither confirm nor deny if Java will have destructuring." And
Oh.
and I replied saying, "Well, I think from the tweet I already know the answer. I cannot wait for it." But he went on to describe different modes of destructuring that are useful, and that really gave me the perspective how deep he is diving into bringing destructuring
Uh-huh.
into Java. We saw that emerge in Java 19 with record destructuring, but there's more to come. And that's what excites me about these languages. When Java introduces destructuring, I'm not
Uh-huh.
asking what's destructuring. I'm interested in knowing how it's going to be implemented because I've seen it in Kotlin, I've seen it in JavaScript, I've used it in these languages and a few other languages. To me,
Right.
that's the excitement about focusing on different languages is you are thinking about it in different perspectives, and it shortens your time to get up to speed
Hmm.
when the language you use begins to evolve towards those features. And
Yeah.
I think so
Yeah.
Java programmers will benefit from learning, among other things, JavaScript as well.
Yeah.
And hence my talk related to JavaScript here today.
I don't know. I've yet to be convinced.
Give me the
No,
benefit of doubt.
I'll give the benefit of doubt. No, I think you make a really good point. I mean, occasionally we'll get involved in language wars, and it's all silly, right? For me, it's mostly just banter. Um, because you're right. It's very limiting. If you don't look at these other languages, it's very limiting. Um, Everything has, even when we look at different tools, for example, in the DevOps space, there could be a number of different tools to choose from, just like languages, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses in different areas. And I think that instead of just ignoring a particular set of tools or
Yep.
ignoring a language, understand why there's a lot of people that like this tool, that use it regularly. A lot of people that like a particular language and use it regularly, and there are reasons why
Right.
that is. So if we understand, take the time to step back and reflect and understand what the good parts are,
Right.
um, there's nothing but good that can come out of that,
And,
right?
and, and completely agree with everything you said. And what's really exciting about this also is language is a communication tool,
Hmm.
but a language is also a design tool.
Yes.
So what intrigues me is, I used to program back in time in C++,
Right.
and I used to program predominantly in C++. And I'll be absolutely frank about it. The first day I learned about this concept called interface inheritance. I'm like, what in the world is interface inheritance?
Yeah.
I've been programming with classes,
Uh-huh.
abstract-based classes, or purely virtual functions in C++,
Right.
and it took me a while to wrap my head around the fact that you can actually, and for crying out loud, in C++ you can create interfaces,
Uh-huh.
just that you call them as pure abstract classes.
Right.
But to have that mind shift to say, oh, you can actually create interfaces with no fields in it, no implementations in it, and you can have multiple of those coming together, not bring in an implementation. And a light bulb went in my head, and I said to myself, wait, here is another reason why I want to learn languages, is because languages make you think differently. This
Yes.
goes back to the
Yes.
suffer-worth hypothesis,
Uh-huh.
right? Suffer-worth hypothesis says your thoughts are influenced by the languages you speak,
Yes.
which is weird to think about,
It
right?
is really weird.
Because
It-
I used to think that I have thoughts in my mind,
Uh-huh.
and I express that in my language I know, whether it's my mother tongue or other languages I know.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, 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 no. What you think here is restricted by the languages you know to speak. Well, I'm not a natural language expert, but I can vouch for it from programming languages, having done different languages, is the design ideas I contemplate in my mind is restricted by the languages I know,
Yes.
because how can I envision a design of something that I can't imagine being feasible in implementation?
Exactly.
So the more different languages we end up learning, it broadens the design tools we are beginning to exercise.
Yep.
What that leads to is when I work with developers, I see them say, but how about doing this? And you're like, wait, how do you do that? Oh, in Python we could do this, in Ruby we could do this, in JavaScript we could do this. And we kind of tried that here in Java or C# or whatever that is.
Right.
And that to me is fascinating because now it has given you the freedom to think, so to say, out of your box.
Yes.
You're no longer confined by the capabilities that are given to you. You can push the boundaries.
Uh-huh.
It gives you more space in your design as well.
Yes. It totally makes sense to me. I can really see the parallels between spoken language and programming languages for sure. It totally makes sense. It's like trying to describe something, but you don't have the words to describe it. It's
Yeah.
not very helpful. It's hard to communicate with others. So yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, I'm super interested in your talk. I will try and make it, and I'll give you my opinion after.
Sounds good.
One last thing. This isn't your first time at JFocus, right?
Actually not. I've been here a few times before, but just been a while since I came
Yeah.
back to JFocus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful venue, beautiful conference, very well put together. I'm really impressed with it every time I've been. This is my second time, so you know, last time it was in the spring, so we're experiencing a little bit different weather this time around. But gorgeous city, really enjoy Stockholm. We're both from the same part of the U.S., which is so interesting that we run into each other here on the other side of the world. But we were just talking about how we meet each other at these conferences more often than we would cross paths at home. But it's worth it. I really appreciate being able to travel again and being able to speak face to face and have these interviews and learn from you. Really appreciate your time here.
Thank you so much for having me here also, Melissa. Thank you.
course.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for chatting with
Thank
me.
you.